Anyway, joining us now is South Carolina Senator, friend of the program, also presidential candidate. Tim Scott is back with us. Sir, welcome back.
Sean, God bless you. Thank you for continuing to air the truth, especially in this dire time for our allies, our friend Israel. What a blessing to have you on the radio right now.
Well, you know, you're kind to say it. I wish it wasn't happening. I can wish all day. I wish there was an evil in the world, but we both know that there is. We've seen the images. I guess one of the most shocking things to come out post this was what was happening on Friday, and that is these massive protests. I'm sure you saw the images in Times Square. It looked like New Year's Eve, and, you know, people not without the moral clarity to see that Israel was the victim of a terror attack. And all these people died, over 1,300 Israelis. If you compare their population to ours, it would be the equivalent of 38,000, and people support Hamas. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around that, Senator.
John, I got to tell you, it was devastating to see people in our own country marching and celebrating an absolute terrorist organization for the annihilation of our Jewish brothers and sisters. Hamas wants to wipe Israel off the map, but they don't stop there. There are two more steps. The second step is to eliminate all Jews anywhere on the planet. And the third is to compromise and then destroy Western democracies. And I got to tell you, if any of those students on college campuses are foreign nationals on a visa, they should be sent back to their countries. Anyone who stands up and who says they want to kill Jews, they support terrorism, they should have that visa revoked.
But having so many, I guess what shocked me a little bit, and I thought at this point in my life, my career, I was unshockable. You know, I'm having a hard time understanding the volume of people, the number of supporters. That's what shocked me.
Yes, I'll tell you, I think we're living in an alternate universe where the radical left continues to sow seeds of division and polarization, and they want to have a story about the oppressor and the oppressed. We've seen that. I've said it so many times, Sean, that the fact is that the radical left will use anybody, any group, any issue to hold on to their power. Here at home, they want to divide America on racial lines and on class lines. And globally, they want to put people in positions of being the oppressor, and they come to the defense of the oppressed, no matter how inconsistent with human history that story actually is. And that's exactly what they're doing. This is where the indoctrination of our young people versus the education of our young people is so important. We have to stop indoctrinating college students and high school students that America is evil or that Western democracies are somehow oppressors.
Can you explain, for example, Ivy League institutions and some 30-plus Harvard groups blaming Israel and only Israel for being a victim of terror attack? Now, I thought as a country, we kind of had consensus on the idea that you don't blame victims. What happened?
You're right. I can't explain what is unexplainable. It's like you said, you've never been stumped in all of your years of being on radio and telling the truth. I got to tell you, I've been around for 58 years, and I've never been more disappointed in a large group of people who gather in New York and in Michigan and in Chicago to celebrate terrorists. There is no way for you or I, for us to explain the devastation and, frankly, the delusion of people marching in the streets of America. I can't explain it, Tom. It's just unexplainable.
So what should the Biden administration's position be? What should America's positions be? If you were president, what would your position be?
The number one thing I would say is, number one, we always stand with our allies. We will be loyal to our allies. We will be lethal to our collective adversaries, number one. Number two, we should provide all the support, resources, weaponry, and emotional support to the nation of Israel and their people who have been murdered, who have been beheaded, burned, raped. Their families need our collective support. And we should say to the IDF, until Hamas is wiped off the face of the earth, there can be no ceasefire. The only time to have a ceasefire is when they're all dead. And I'm talking about Hamas. They have to be wiped out. They are an existential threat to the existence of Israel. And the next thing I would do is make sure that we have our special operation forces prepared to rescue Americans being held. It is so important. You take an American, it should cost you your life. And I am willing to use our mighty fighting force, our special operations, to rescue those Americans.
I'd love to be honest and say I really am optimistic that we're going to be able to get these hostages. Now, we think as many as 150, and a number of them, dozens perhaps, Americans. We know now the figure has gone up, 30 Americans killed in these terror attacks. So, however, having been there during conflict even, and having been right at the Gaza border, in a town where 10,000 rockets had been fired into this town, Salut, for over the last 10 years. And the kids can't play outside because it only takes 13 seconds for a missile launched in Gaza to reach this border Israeli town. And my question is I don't know how you can accomplish a mission like that. Number one, Gaza's pretty big overall. I mean, it's going to take some significant intelligence, or maybe intelligence they already have embedded in the ground there to find out the location. And that then is the only hope we have that I can think of.
Sean, I don't think you're wrong. One of the things that we've been admired about Israel for a very long time is the high level, high quality of their intelligence agency. I know that we've seen a breakdown, at least from all signs of the intelligence gathering. There is human intelligence embedded on the ground. I would suggest that there is a way for us to do it, but the way that we should expect is for the IDF to go into Gaza and to do what is almost impossible to do, which is to go home to home, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, and thoroughly and meticulously root out and eliminate, neutralizing the actual threat, which is Hamas. And through that process, find Americans, find hostages. One of the things that we have to remember, Don, is the importance of the complete siege. Cutting off resources into Gaza, particularly that portion of Gaza, is one of the ways that we cause so much pain that they want to concede our position, eliminate the pain by giving us our hostages back.
Let's talk about Iran and their role in this, and all the reports that they did the plotting and the planning and of this, the Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's involvement, Lebanon, Hezbollah, and both Gaza and Hamas. How should the world be dealing with Iran at this time?
Well, one of the things I've been saying for a long time is I find Joe Biden to be complicit because the weakness from the presidency actually always has invited conflict. The negotiations from this president paid for much of the resources in this conflict. $6 billion has made Joe Biden complicit. That money is fungible. We've had that conversation multiple times. The average American gets it. Only the elite miss it. And then third, when you tell Israel to stand down or refrain immediately after being attacked, you're on the wrong page. What we do with Iran is we put the price of every single American hostage on their balance sheet. There has to be a consequence to Iran for the support they provide to Hamas. And if we see any action from Hezbollah, we need to raise that price. And that means the greatest deterrent we have for future attacks is to go to the source of the money that provides them with the ability to attack, and that is Iran.
Let me ask you about what's going on in the House in this battle for Speaker. I see that I triggered a number of the snowflakes over the weekend by asking, I think, relevant questions, because I think urgency is paramount. And do you have any plans of when you can open the House? And lastly, would you ever choose to work with Democrats because of all those reports that some Republicans are considering working with Hakeem Jeffries, which is insanity to me and not leadership? You see anything wrong with me asking as a talk show host, a member of the press, those questions?
Of course not. That just sounds like common sense. Let me just go back to my House days before I tell you what I think is clearly obvious. I have worked with Scalise, with Kevin McCarthy, with Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan supported Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker. The one thing I can tell you about all three men, I thought it was disgusting to see Scalise bow out of the race because Nancy Mace talked about him being a part of some kind of white supremacy. I remember those days. I remember Cedric Richmond, a black Democrat, who came to the defense of Steve Scalise because they had such a relationship for 20 years. It only made sense to me that we should be proud of our members of Congress who want to lead Kevin McCarthy or Steve Scalise. I will tell you on Jim Jordan, the one thing you can count on is he is a man of integrity. He has strong credibility. He is more conservative than some. But what we need in America now is a united Republican Party, because the road to socialism runs right through the divisions in our party. They should get behind closed doors, settle the speaker's race, change the rules until after November 2024 that you can't change the speaker. Because instead of us talking about the refugee crisis that could be on our doorstep, when you have presidential candidates who are softening their position, instead of us talking about the crisis on our southern border, where we're seeing 70,000 Americans die. But, Sean, we're seeing nationals come from Yemen and from Iran and China. Instead of us talking about the devastation of the Bidenomics, we're seeing the infighting of the Republican Party distracting us from what...
To have the People's House closed at this time, I think plenty of time now has passed. Like you, I didn't like the rule that, any member at any time can close down the House and vacate the chair. I don't like it, especially with a slim majority, because, any 4 or 5 people can just, take over the House at that point. And I think it just leads to chaos, which is unfolding now. And I just think the issues before us are too urgent not to have a speaker.
Totally agree with you. That's one of the reasons why if Jim Jordan is the nominee today, get it done. What we should all say, if I were president of the United States, John, the one thing I would say to my party, the Great Opportunity Party, is that we're going to focus on the future of this nation. Let's stop focusing on ourselves. Let's do the people's work, and that requires a speaker to be approved. And if you only have 221 votes, you need 218, figure it out and get it done today. And don't go home. Don't leave the room. Don't take a bathroom break until it's done. Because as President of the United States, we need to be about the people's business. We have a crisis on our borders, a crisis international, and it is time for us to have a single-minded focus.
All right, Senator Tim Scott from the great state of South Carolina. Senator, always great to have you. Thank you, sir. Look forward to talking to you again.